Yeah, we're back.
You are back. Crypto is back. It's
maybe for
headlines,
a second.
news, little volatility.
34,000, almost 35,000 yesterday.
Yeah, feels a little bit better. I think just from a trading perspective, it's alive. Vol just increased by 50%. We went from 40 to 60. And there's a lot going on. The theme kind of still is Bitcoin over everything. We've talked about Bitcoin market dominance. That's simply just the market cap of Bitcoin versus everything else, and that's closer to 54%. I think it can still run here. There's reasons why. We've seen Bitcoin kind of take front and center stage here, but if you do see that get to a point where we're trading around, let's say 60%, I think that might be a signal for me to maybe look at some of the alts to Bitcoin. And that's what we want to talk about here today, where we're not at that point just yet, but it's unrealistic to think that we get to a market where Bitcoin's 100%, right, or 80%. So there is a little bit of a ceiling here. And in talking to Tom yesterday, he wanted to look at whether there was an opportunity to trade that ratio or that spread, or the way that you would think about it just in cryptocurrency terms. If we price Ethereum or any other crypto in Bitcoin as the base currency, what does that look like? And then is there an opportunity to trade this? Because right now, while ETH has done well, it's significantly underperformed Bitcoin over the last week. It hasn't participated as much in this just monster rally, up 20% that we've seen in Bitcoin. It's gone up, but not by much.
In fact, yesterday
it's been very focused to Bitcoin. I agree 100%.
Yes.
It's it's so funny that like when things happen, you always think it's just so hard to knock kind of the champion off the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
In anything.
God knows I've been trying for about 12 years now, Ryan.
It's so hard.
So hard.
Yeah. I mean, they all come for you. They all come for you. You spent half your life beating them back.
Thought it would be Barzini.
But I'm not. But like, no matter what it is, like if it's Lyft trying to take on Uber, or if it's Burger King trying to take on McDonald's, whatever. It's so hard. And when ETH trying to take over, Bitcoin, kind of knock them off the mountain, or anybody else knocking them off the mountain, it's just so damn hard.
You better not miss.
Better not miss is exactly right. Better not
coming
miss.
For the king.
That's right.
Yeah.
So when we look at that spread right now, and to your point, Tom, ETH priced in Bitcoin is at a multi-year low. And so we'll jump into some charts here. But I think the first thing, when we look at whether or not there's even an opportunity here, right? And this is the same thing that you guys talk about when you're pairs trading other futures, or you're thinking about equities.
We put it on yesterday, trying to figure out the exact ratio.
That was a good trade then already. I mean,
yeah, it's a very small winner because we didn't do the ratio right. Okay. So that's why I'm waiting for the show today.
Well, maybe hopefully this is the right ratio.
It worked out better for you.
No, but we tried to do micros, and we messed it up.
That's what I've got on here is micros.
Okay, well, you could try. Okay. You show me what you come up with micros. It's going to be a pretty big ratio, I think.
It is.
Yeah, okay.
But the first thing we have to ask ourselves, for anybody that's following along here, is whether or not these things are correlated. On the surface, you would assume,
yeah.
they're correlated, right?
I've already accepted that. I mean, for me, that's an assumption you have to believe in. You can only do pairs trades with correlated underlyings. For me, that's an assumption that I totally.
So you see that here, and then I also think it's important to look at whether or not their volatility is correlated. And in both cases, we see there's a pretty strong positive correlation. There's a little bit of a dip here, and you can see that's back in November 22. If everybody recalls, that's when FTX collapsed. A lot going on, forced selling in the industry, and so you see a little bit of a decoupling there. But pretty strong positive relationship. And then if we jump to the next slide, let's take a look at that performance I was talking about earlier. Bitcoin has been a fantastic asset to be in this past year. I mean, a lot of things have worked well. NASDAQ's worked well. Bitcoin's outperformed here, and has really outperformed ETH. So ETH's up, call it about 50% if I'm just eyeing up that chart there. Bitcoin north of 100 following this recent move. And so maybe we see that catch up. And I think it's really illustrated on the next slide. When you look at that spread, or you look at what's ETH priced in Bitcoin, spot 0.55. So if we were to see this at, spot 1, that's a tenth of a Bitcoin. Another way to think of it would be how many Ethereum go into the price of, or equal 1 Bitcoin, right? And so that's about 18 and a half, 19 or so, depending on where the prices are at this exact moment. And you can see that this is a multi-year low. We haven't, if we go back in time, you'll see it's a multi-year low, but we haven't seen it down here in a while. Certainly doesn't mean that it can't continue to get pounded down, but maybe there's a trade.
I'm ready here. Let's go. I got my finger on the trigger.
Awesome.
Don't sell past the close.
All right. So when we look at how you would set this up, how do you adjust for the volatility as well? How do you adjust for the ratio? /MET, that's the micro Ethereum future. That's 1/10 of one Ethereum, and the micro Bitcoin is 1/10 of one Bitcoin. We'll talk about adjusting for vol, but what you basically need here is almost 20 micro Ethereum per Bitcoin.
Before adjusting for vol.
Before adjusting
and what
for
is the
vol.
vol of Bitcoin right now?
The vol of Bitcoin ticked up to 65.60. It's come down a little bit, but yeah, right about 60. So
60.
we're at 40.
And what's the vol of ETH?
About 55.
Oh, so
but
you don't really have to adjust much for vol.
The problem with this is that these things can move so much within a 24-hour period.
So assume you don't have to adjust, then it's 19 to 1 if you're doing that. But so if you weren't doing that way, so MBT is 1/10 of a Bitcoin. So 1/10 of Bitcoin is right now
$3,400.
$3,400.
Yep.
$3,450. Right? Yeah, $3,400.
Yep.
3,400 exactly. Okay, and then 1/10 of an ETH contract
1,800.
is 180.
Yes.
180. Yeah, it's 1,800.
180. So 180 times 19 is 3,400.
Yep.
That's your number.
So that's your ratio here. What'd you guys do it in when you were looking at it yesterday?
We couldn't get past the math.
We were confused by the
1/10 aside.
I've never traded. I never traded a micro ETH before. So I've traded the ETH contract, which is 5 coins, right? Times 1,800. So 5 times 1,800 is 9,000. So the other way to do it would be 1 ETH,
3 to 4.
1 ETH contract to 3 MBT.
Yes.
Those are your two choices.
Which,
3.5.
yeah, there's nothing really in the middle. And if we just jump to the next slide, we've got
2 by 6.
couple more details on these futures, on these micros. And that's really...
And this thing moves around. Well, it's already moved around a lot today.
It does. And that's that's kind of the issue with this, where on one side, if you're trading the micros, you have tiny products. And in the case of Ethereum, it's way too small. And then on the other side, the products are almost way too big, especially when you look at Bitcoin. So you get kind of these weird ratios. But here's what we've talked about.
So 1 ETH contract is 5. I'm confused. One is 5 coins. The market's only $1 wide. So is $1 on 5 contracts?
$5.
Is that $500?
I don't think so. Not on the ETH. No. Because if we're looking at the micro here, the minimum tick at 1/10 of an ETH is 50 cents per Ethereum. And so it's going to be 5 cents per contract on that micro. So it's very, very small in terms of the exposure you have if you just long one of these.
Okay, well, let's just think about this today. So Ethereum's up $22 and Bitcoin's down 500. Wow, that's a huge move in the spread.
Yeah. Yeah, it has moved quite a bit. I mean, we're just 24 hours late here on this, show.
But yeah, I get it. So yesterday was the day to put this on in size, of course,
absolutely.
in hindsight. So it's up $20. So up $20 on 1 ETH contract. Tony, what does that mean?
That's a question I'm asking the team. I'm not sure. I don't want to say a number.
Is that
that'd be correct.
$1,000? It's got to be 20 times. It can't be 10,000. It has to be 1,000.
1,000 to my knowledge, but I can't get confirmation.
It can't be $100. No, it can't be. It's got to be. It's got to be $1,000. I just want to make sure before I do this. So ETH's up $1,000, and Bitcoin, if you did 3 micros, it's down.
So I'm just looking at the specs on the CME website here for the Ethereum future that you're talking about. Yeah. And when you look at the minimum tick, 50 cents per Ether, so let's just go $1 there. It's going to be $50 per dollar in Ethereum because it's $25 per 50 cent minimum tick.
Right. So $50 per dollar for one contract, right?
That's right. Yep.
So right. So that's $1,000 times 5. So it's $5,000 for a $20 move. I never traded it. I mean, I've traded the ETH contract, but I can't remember. So I think it's $5,000, but I don't know. It's bigger than you think.
This is the problem we had yesterday.
Yeah, I think this spread moved like $5,000, $6,000 today. I'm not 100% sure. That's what I have to figure out before I do it. That's why I called you in here today.
Well, I got the micros for you. We'll go back and figure out.
Okay, so 19-1.
The bigger contracts. But yeah, 19-1, and here are the details around those contracts, the specs up here.
I got it.
Cool. So let's see. How do you set this up? If we just jump to the next one, here's the math behind that for anybody that's interested in this as this kind of moves around. So 18.9, we can't do that. So we're going to do 19. And again, long 19, you want Ethereum to go up and you want Bitcoin to go down in terms of how you trade the spread. So let's think now about how you might adjust for volatility in the event that you do see wildly different vols. Historically, Ethereum vol has been a lot higher than Bitcoin, which I think probably to most people makes sense. But you've seen recently the Bitcoin vol explode. Whether or not ETH vol picks up here, we'll see. But on the next slide, you can see that the Bitcoin volatility right now is about 60%, ETH at 55, and that jumped significantly from where we were yesterday on this up move. Yesterday, this was 1.15, and so what that meant was that you need about 15% more of your Ethereum futures here to weight that volatility. Today, you need less on that move in ETH vol, so you need only 10% if we just take the Bitcoin vol divided by ETH vol. And so that gives you, depending on how you want to structure this, you might be a little bit more bullish. You might have a view one way or the other, and you want to go a little bit heavier.
Way off yesterday.
Okay, what did you guys do it at?
I don't even remember, but it was way off.
Okay.
So we were waiting till today to readjust, but I didn't think that Bitcoin would be down 600 and ETH would be up 20. So I think that's pretty.
Yeah, it's a decent move there.
Yeah, because you're 1/3 of that on one coin. So.
Especially on that on the Bitcoin side.
Yeah, no, I actually think the ETH moves more, but I gotta figure it out.
Well, if you want to adjust for the volatility at these levels, buy 21. It's kind of funny to say that. 21 Ethereum futures, micro futures, and sell one Bitcoin micro future.
That's gonna be worth it.
Yeah, it's these products make it tough to do this.
I don't think that's worth it cost-wise.
But this is how you would think about structuring that trade, and I think everything that goes into it for people in the future. And then if we just jump to the next slide, just a quick one on risk, because I think a lot of times people hear crypto and they just think super risky. There's a lot of negative headlines around it for whatever reason. But with the size of these futures contracts, if you want this exposure, and we're talking about things that very quickly can see a 60 to 80 vol to 100 vol, and they do move. And so this is a good way to get exposure to that at a very small notional size. Again, you want to trade Ethereum, $180 in notional. Bitcoin right now, $3,400 on the micros. And so if we look at this this spread here, and just going back to where we were yesterday when I started to put some of this together, let's assume that this moves by about 10%. So that means roughly your 19 ETH equals 1 Bitcoin changes to 21 ETH equals 1 Bitcoin. And so that 10% move is going to equate to a loss on the trade of about $340. So I think for most people, trade small, trade often, smaller size here, this is an appropriate position. It's tough to blow up a bigger account with on a 10% move that's only $340. So it is accessible in that sense. But this is how you would set this up. There are other ways to trade this. I do think, and I've mentioned this on the show before, if you're looking for opportunities, it's really important to look at the alts, not in terms of, what is this in dollars and has it gone up or down as much as the others, but price these all in your base currency of Bitcoin in the same way that we'd price just about everything else we want to trade on a currency side in dollars. You can obviously look at the, ETH versus Solana or vice versa, but if you start to price it in Bitcoin, you'll find opportunities. You'll find shorts, you'll find longs, and there's a lot more to trade when you look at these pairs, you look at these spreads. Tough to do it without a ton of futures or options. You can do this in the spot market in some cases, but this is where there's opportunity.
There's no correlations on these yet, right, to one product like a Bitcoin. Like, you know, like you have
they have correlations, but I mean, like you can see today, they're all over the place.
Yes, but there's no disseminated correlation to any of these, right? Like you have correlation of a stock, like you'll have ABC stock correlated to the S&P as point something correlation. They really kind of haven't dug down to that yet, right?
I'd look at everything against Bitcoin.
Okay.
You know, Bitcoin would be my market
Parameter.
beta here,
Sure.
and then everything against that.
Sure.
But I think it is important too to look at how this is correlated, how Bitcoin, how crypto as an asset class is correlated against equities at times. There's the digital gold narrative, you know, and rates have had an impact. The dollar certainly has an impact. Mm-hmm. So those are other areas that when I'm trading crypto, that's what I want to at least be aware of.
Sure.
You know, what's the temperature outside, sort of thing.
Very good.
Cool.
That's really good discussion. What else you got?
Got a shout out to Dr. Data. He helped me with
10 of 12. That's why we're
with some
asking
of this.
again.
What's that?
10 of 12 again. That's why I'm asking if you have more slides.
Oh, my bad. No, just our
shout out to
just a
Dr.
little.
Data.
Yeah, I got a shout out to him. He helped me put some of this together. He told me this is how you want to structure a show.
I help him every day. It's
so
like I'm
Tom will
non-existent.
like it.
You can't do that. You can't. The data doesn't count.
Unfortunately, it's just really hard to do 19 micros, 20 micros against a one lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's not it's too expensive, the transaction cost, because the markets aren't tight enough.
Yeah.
In those micros. Yeah, got it.
We'll get there eventually.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get there.
Okay.
We
All
have
right.
seen an explosion in open interest in trading volume across a lot of these listed futures, though, here recently, whether it's based on trying to front run an ETF listing or just some bullishness that's coming to the market more recently.
How much of it do you think is trying to front run the ETF? Because I don't really get that trade. If that's the trade, I don't get it.
I think, this is largely just a short-term, trade the news kind of. There's some headlines that came out and maybe jump on that short-term momentum. I tend to agree with you there. I don't think you really can front-run that too much, or it already has occurred to some extent. At least in the short term.
Got it.
Very good. Can I ask you one quick question to bring it back to stocks for a quick second? Are there any stocks that you can look to maybe that are already in these ETFs that represent Bitcoin, or their future ETFs? Is there any?
Yeah.
Any
so
star?
I think there's a couple ways if you're looking at what I'll call crypto proxies.
Yeah, okay.
And many times these have much higher volatility. As trading vehicles, it might be great companies, who knows, but those are going to be your crypto miners, so your Riots, your Marathons, those are going to be crypto proxies with a lot higher volatility. Coinbase is a great proxy to, highly correlated to the price of Bitcoin.
But all these ETFs already have.
But there are these thematic ETFs that'll give you exposure to
like BITO.
Like BitQ, BITQ, or Block is probably a better one. BLOK, and that's going to hold companies like Coinbase. It'll probably, my guess is, I haven't looked at the holdings recently. Guess is there will be companies in some of these like a MicroStrategy, which is like a pseudo
But you
Bitcoin
can't really trade
ETF.
that. Yeah.
But these are the exposures that these ETFs will give you. Will give you in your.
It's like an
portfolio.
XLE giving you exposure to oil stocks.
Exactly. So you got your Exxons, your Chevrons in there.
Sure.
In this case, you get your Marathons, your Coinbases, and other kind of blockchain related companies. You'll see IBM and some other big tech companies in some of these too. So it's important to be aware of whether it's actually blockchain, but in many cases it is, because a lot of companies are building in this space, and certainly when you look at IBM, Google, and others have been investing in this for some time.
Very good, sir. Very good.
I think the most encouraging piece is it's back in play.
Yeah. It's a lot better than it was this summer and early fall, that's for sure.
It's back in play.
Awesome. Let's take a quick 90-second break and come back. Even the S&P is down 27. NASDAQ down 150. Russell unchanged. We'll be back in 90 seconds. Let's take it live.